Yes. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. May we start? Okay, thank you. So, in our previous classes, just I want to remind you, we discussed in Unit 2, language function, communicative functions we discussed. Communicative functions, then under communicative functions, we discussed about communicative competence we discussed. And language functions, under language functions, we discussed language exponents, language functions, and some activities, common activities like cue dialogue, games, and we discuss about worksheet. Then we discuss about matching, word, constructing exponents. There's some 5-6 very common activities we discussed. So I hope you have understood those activities. Then we discussed about vocabulary teaching also. In vocabulary teaching, we discussed 2-3 points. One is what are the basic steps of dealing with vocabulary. Some steps we have pointed out, and what are the various ways or techniques to teach vocabulary, that also we discussed. And some words are given, then we will be asked how do we deal with those words. So these different perspectives, from these perspectives we discussed. Now pronunciation part also we discussed, that what are the problems of learning pronunciation to the Nepalese learners of English, and how can we overcome, how can we help learners to learn those problems. What are the basic steps? That gradual release model we discussed, I do, we do, and you do. These 3 stages we apply while adopting gradual release model. Then this is very useful model in teaching pronunciation. And some activities like we did minimal pair and rhyming words, same or different, spot the different, and recording students' own voice, and this through modeling, through visual representation, phonetic symbols using, and these tongue twisters, these activities you remember in what pronunciation. How do we improve the pronunciation of the students? Okay, and we also know that pronunciation is one of the neglected areas in English language teaching, because pronunciation itself consists of very difficult aspects like sounds, dealing with sounds, and dealing with stress, dealing with intonation pattern. So these are inherently difficult areas of language. Not only non-native speakers of English language, but even native speakers, they feel difficult, because of these difficulties of dealing with pronunciation. Most of the English teachers in Nepal, they try to escape from these. One thing, another thing is what, even without formal teaching of pronunciation to the students, then they seem to have good command over pronunciation. So if students, they learn pronunciation without formal teaching, then why should we teach? This kind of classroom experience also has suggested that, or shown that, so no need to teach pronunciation. There are such, but formal teaching of pronunciation, of course, supports students to learn, So रिजल्ट आएको छ र आएको छ जस्तो लागेको छैन? आउने भन्ने कुरा हो, हैन? So these are the things we discussed in our previous classes. Then grammar part is remaining. After this receptive and productive skill, we do grammar. Then we complete this unit 2 also. Okay. So here for the today's discussion, this receptive and productive skill, these are the talking points. Classification of language skills. Okay. So receptive and productive skills, receptive listening and reading, productive speaking and writing, oral skills and written skills also we can say. Oral skills, listening and speaking, written skills, reading and writing. So in lower secondary course, receptive and productive given, and secondary course, this oral and written skill given. And primary and secondary, these skills we discussed in the primary level, grade 1 to 5. So this is according to the level अनुसार चाहिँ राखिदिएको छ. हामी प्राइमेरीमा कुरा गर्दा listening and speaking are the primary skill, reading and writing are the secondary skill. This is the natural order of skill learning. So students should be taught listening first, then speaking, then reading, then writing. यसरी पढाउनु पर्छ भन्ने प्राइमेरी कुरा गर्छौं. Then lower secondary मा गएर हामी receptive and productive को कुरा गरेर secondary मा गएर oral and written को कुरा गरिरहेछौं हैन. So skills can also be classified as decoding skill and encoding skill. Decoding र encoding को रूपमा पनि हामी बुझ्न सक्छौं skill लाई हैन. So so these are the classification of skills. आखिरी त्यही चारवटा listening, speaking, reading, writing हो. These 4 skills can be categorized or can be classified into different groups according to the some indicators or criteria. For example, receptive and productive, this is in terms of the direction. यो चाहिँ के हो भने in terms of direction हो. This is what in terms of direction. Language input कतातिर जान्छ हैन. If it goes inside, then this is receptive. If it goes outside, then this is what productive. So according to the direction of language input कता जान्छ. So if it goes inside, receptive. When we listen and read, we receive language input. Then when we speak and write, we produce language. So direction of language in terms of direction of language, in terms of direction. So then this oral and written, this is what in terms of medium in terms of medium. Which medium? Oral, that is listening and speaking. Then what? Writing, this is what reading and writing. So in terms of medium, so we can say oral and what writing. So in terms of this primary and secondary, this in terms of what? This is natural order of what? Skill learning. So in our first unit, we discussed natural approach. Claims that there are some naturalistic learning principles when students and they get chance to listen, they get chance to receive the exposure of target language in listening, speaking, reading and writing. They learn what in a natural way. So naturalistic learning principles अंतर्गत, so primary and secondary skills भनेर पनि हामी पढ्न सक्छौं. Primary listening and speaking, secondary reading and writing. So decoding and encoding, this is also what this is in terms of direction हो. यो पनि in terms of direction हो, in terms of direction. So when we receive, then this is what decoding. When we produce or express, that is what encoding. So in this way, classification of skills we have. You classification बुझ्नु पर्यो पहिला हामीले हैन. Then we talk about receptive and productive. And to understand this classification, I have drawn one figure. This is one figure about have you seen? Yes. To show the relationship between receptive and productive skills, we can have this kind of figure. Then we understand. Yeh figure le pani majale yalai byakhya garna sakincha ke. For example, in one side there is what language inputs, हैन. यहाँ language inputs छ. Language input का के बाट पाइन्छ? Listening and reading. So listening and reading serve function is the foundation level of language learning. When we listen and read, we receive language input. When we listen, we understand something, or we receive information, some kind of knowledge, ideas we receive, and that is what language input technically we call. And when we read also, we look at words and sentences, and we pick up some information, and we update and upgrade our knowledge. So these two, listening and speaking, these two skills are what? These two skills are the receptive language skills, receptive language skills. Then these receptive language skills are important for the development of the foundation of language learning, language development. So foundation, they prepare foundation, and foundation prepare, and they play the role of springboard. Springboard group ma chai kaam garcha reading, listening and reading le chai. This means but learners le chai suncha र पढ्छ. यो दुईटा स्किलबाट उले ल्याङ्ग्वेज इनपुट रिसिभ गर्छ, हैन, ल्याङ्ग्वेज इनपुट रिसिभ गर्छ. Then what happens? Then a kind of foundational development of language learning happens, हैन. आधार तयार हुन्छ, फाउन्डेसन तयार हुन्छ. That foundation is, or that base of language development is a kind of springboard हो के. त्यो एउटा लचक त्यो बोर्ड त्यस्तो बोर्ड हो जहाँ चाहिँ एकदम लचकदार छ के. हामी त्यहाँबाट बल्ल हामी जम्प गर्नुपर्छ. So we have to jump, we have to bounce गर्नुपर्छ. Means we have to stretch our learning. अब हामी स्पिकिङ तिर जान्छौँ, हामी रिडिङ राइटिङ तिर जान्छौँ, हैन. So this is what prof means. So reading, listening and reading, we understand this is what I'm sorry, this is what creating foundation. And when we speak and write, this is what performance, they are related to what language output के बाहिर निस्कन्छ त भन्दा. So when we speak and when we write, something will be visible or something will be audible outside to the other speakers, other people, participant, then they are what? Output, So these two skills, then now so when we try to elaborate, expand, stretch, strengthen, when we make it go on expanding, बढाउँदै जानु पर्यो नि त सिकाइलाई त, then listening and reading, go on receiving language inputs. When we speak and when we write, then we go on what? Expanding our knowledge. That is what they have such kind of relationship. So in the absence of one, another will be incomplete. So both language input and language output should be there. And here is the this is the process. Process is here. So process means what? Process means students they engage in different language activities. Language activities here. They develop, they engage in different language activities, they process knowledge, हैन यहाँ रिसेप्टिभ स्किल यो छ नि यो लिसनिङ र रिडिङबाट पाएको स्किललाई उले प्रोसेसमा लान्छ र उले आउटपुट निकाल्छ हैन सो दिस काइन्ड अफ रिलेशनशिप वी क्यान सी हामी यस्तो रिलेशनशिप देख्न सक्छौं रिसेप्टिभ एन्ड प्रोडक्टिभको सो both receptive and productive skills are interrelated. One is incomplete or one is not complete in the absence of another. एउटाको अनुपस्थितिमा अर्को complete हुँदैन. So language listening and reading creates the foundation of language development. And if there is no speaking and writing, no further development, we cannot elaborate, we cannot expand full potential, full development of language. So if we don't have listening and reading, then we cannot have enough or adequate language input. Then our full language output or full performance or complete performance we cannot ensure. So for the complete language development of the learners, so both receptive and productive skills are important. But sometimes question कसै सोध्न सक्छ भने which skill do you focus in your class, receptive or productive? यस्तो पनि सोध्न सक्छ. Which skill, कुन स्किललाई जोड दिने त? Which skills do you focus or emphasize much in your class, receptive or productive? यहाँ रिसेप्टिभ बिना प्रोडक्टिभ पनि काम छैन, प्रोडक्टिभ बिना रिसेप्टिभ पनि काम छैन भनेको not enough, not so meaningful, not complete हुँदैन. So both we need, but how? If we are asked which one do you or which one do we focus much in our lower secondary class, receptive focus गर्ने कि productive focus गर्ने भन्ने रिजनहरु हुन्छ. So we have to discuss that also. Then activities, अब activitiesहरु के हो? How do you teach listening, how do you teach reading, how do you teach speaking, how do you teach writing, these we have to discuss. And some activities to teach listening and reading, listening and reading पढाउनको लागि, and speaking and writing को पढाउनको लागि some activities we discuss. Okay, this is the what receptive and what productive, receptive and productive language skills of English language. अब माथि हामी जाउँ. So this classification receptive and productive in terms of direction भनेर बुझ्नु पर्यो. When something goes inside, this is receptive. When we listen and read, some new ideas, information we get, we receive, so they are called receptive skill. When we speak and write, something goes outside, something will be audible and visible to the participants, readers. Then what they are the productive skills. You oral and written, primary and secondary, decoding, encoding, just you understand there are other classification of skills. There are other classification of skills. Now talking points here, language exists in two forms, of course. We know oral and written language. Oral language, listening and speaking, written, reading and writing. We have listening and speaking skills are oral language skills. Reading and writing are written language skills, and they are also called primary and secondary. When we use language to use linguistic system, decoding and encoding, and these two activities will be involved. Decoding means it is related to the recognition of language, recognition of sounds, recognition of words, recognition of sentences. This is what listening and reading encoding means when we express our present, when you produce, then it is encoding, and this is what reading and express speaking and writing. So speaking and writing skills are encoding skills. When we produce something, that will be encoding. When we receive or we understand, we recognize, that is what decoding is. अब यहाँ हामीले sample question answer पनि छ एउटा, यो हेरौँ. यो हेरेपछि receptive productive को एउटा इमेज पिक्चर आउँछ होला हैन नाउ लेट्स सी explain receptive skill and productive skill यो दुईटाको एक्सप्लेन गर्नु पर्यो which skill would you focus much on when you become an English teacher at lower secondary level give your reasons अब यस्तो टाइपको क्वेशनहरु हेर्न पर्यो explain receptive and productive skill भनेर नि सोध्न सक्छ receptive and productive language skills हैन language skills भन्नु पर्न सक्छ हैन explain receptive and productive language skills which skill would you focus much on when you become an English teacher an English language teacher at lower secondary level give your reasons so here just description of receptive explanation of receptive and productive skills are given like receptive skills are those skills which are used to receive message and meaning communicated by the spoken or written text so of course to listen speaking should be there to read written should be there and a kind of written script should be there and listening हुनको लागि speaking चाहियो हैन without speaking then how we listen then to read of course there should be what a written script हुनु पर्छ पढ्नको लागि so receptive skills are those skills which are used to receive meaning and message communicated by the spoken or written text भनेको speaking अथवा writing text or written script but we receive message and information receptive skills are related to knowing the meaning and message of the text we know we receive we recognize we collect we gain language inputs हैन अथवा receptive skills are related to knowing the meaning and message of the text or अथवा भनौं यहाँ अर्को सेन्टेन्स बनाइदिउँ न it is also said that they are related to language inputs हैन so listening and reading these two skills are related to what language input they receive listening and reading are receptive skills हैन यो माथि नै आइसकेको छ अब receptive skills listening and speaking भनेको छैन माथि हैन listening and reading are receptive skills receptive language skills हैन receptive language skills traditionally they were known as assimilative or passive skills पहिला हामीले listening र reading लाई passive skills हैन assimilative skills भनेर भनिन्थ्यो but today in the present time listening and reading are not only they are not passive skills they are active skills this means when students they listen immediately they think about the response immediately they bring a kind of a response in their mind so because of this listening is not passive skill listening is active skill when पहिला चाहिँ के भयो भने म थोरै point लेख्छु in the past and today हैन past मा के भयो भने यो transmission यानी transmission model of language learning यो हाबी थियो पहिला हैन अहिले चाहिँ interactional interactional transactional and transformational transformational models of language learning हिजो चाहिँ in the past this transmission model, transmission भनेको behaviorism अन्तर्गत and transmission model हैन. So teacher used to transmit हैन, transfer knowledge from teacher to what students. यो transmission model थिङ जो चाहिँ हैन, students are the receiver, teacher has to play the role of producer, transmitter हैन, transfer गर्ने हो, transfer गर्ने हो. हिजो चाहिँ students they go on receiving and passive recipient of knowledge. This kind of practice was in the past in the language teaching and learning process. But today we have communicative approaches. We have communicative approaches like natural approach, communicative approach itself, text-based language learning approach, content-based language learning approach, content and language integrated language learning approach. So there are many approaches, and these approaches claim that language teaching and learning should be communicative, interactive, collaborative. Should be. त्यसो भनिसकेपछि so interaction, transaction, interaction, two-way interaction, exchanges from two sides, and transaction means also a kind of transaction. कारोबार भनेकै के भने give and take हो, a kind of give and take from two parties or two sides हैन. Give and take. अहिले चाहिँ हाम्रो यो खोज्यो हैन. In the past it was not. Interaction also, this is exchange, exchange नै हो. Transaction also give and take नै हुन्छ. Transformation means shift from one position to another position, one position to another, one state to another state, or on another position. This kind of expectation, this kind of objectives we have today in teaching and learning process. अब अहिले चाहिँ हाम्रो के हो भने interaction हुनुपर्छ, transaction हुनुपर्छ, give and take dialogue हुनुपर्छ, then transformation हुनुपर्छ भनेको should take place, learning should take place, shift should be there, shift from one stage to another stage. Then this kind of models we have adapted because we are under the communicative approaches. I mean communicative we are under the COMMUNICATIV communicative approaches हैन. हामी communicative approach भित्र छौं. त्यही भएर communicative approach ले भन्ने नै communicative, interactive, collaborative हुनुपर्छ भन्छ हैन. Then according to this communicative approaches, the model of language learning is what? Interactional model, transactional model, transformational model. So these new concepts in teaching and learning process. So these models, these approaches have recognized that listening and reading are not passive skills, they are active skills. Active skill, okay. When we listen, immediately we think the response. When we read, immediately we think the what answer of the questions. We read, we try to give answer. We read, we try to pick up the specific information, and we try to solve the problems. So this listening and speaking, listening and reading in the past, they were recognized as passive skill. Just students are the receiver of knowledge. They are the passive recipient, good listeners. But today they are expected to listen and think response, to read and think about answers. So they are what passive. Why they are called passive skill, why they are called active skill. So for this तपाईले यो मोडल चाहिँ सम्झिनु पर्ला किन transmission model was in the past. Then today we have communicative approaches. Communicative approaches ले खोज्ने भनेको तीनटा कुरा खोज्छ विशेष गरेर हैन. Three things. Communicative हैन, we discussed in chapter 1, communicative, interactive and collaborative. These three things, ये तीनटा चीज चाहिँ communicative approaches ले खोजेको हुन्छ. So there should be what? Communicative, interactive, collaborative. classroom activities, classroom behavior, classroom, teaching and learning process should be based on what communicative approach, and then what communicative, interactive, collaborative should be there. Your approaches listening and reading are not passive skill. They are not only assimilative skill. They are what? They are the active skills. Not only active, they are the proactive skills. Proactive means what? Go beyond that. I know. Go beyond that and imagine about the future. I know. But when the concept of language is interactional, concept of language is interactional, transactional developed. जब यो interaction गर्नुपर्छ, transaction हुनुपर्छ, transformation हुनुपर्छ भन्ने मोडल आयो नि language teaching लर्निङमा, then they are known as active skills. तिनीहरुलाई चाहिँ active skill ग्रुपमा recognize गर्यो. But it was in the past what? Passive skills. किनकि just they were receiving knowledge because model was transmission model. के transmission model. Transmission model banking system of education हुन्छ के यो मोडलमा. Transmission मोडलमा banking system of education. Banking system भनेको banking system of education भनेको विद्यार्थीको दिमागलाई बैंकको एकाउन्ट सम्झने अनि टिचरले त्यहाँ चाहिँ पैसा जम्मा गरे जस्तो नलेज जम्मा गरिरहने के अनि त्यहाँबाट इन्ट्रेस्ट खोज्ने ब्याज खोज्ने हैन. This kind of banking system of education was practiced in the past. This was in transmission model. तर अहिले हामीसँग के छ भने हामीसँग interactional, transactional, transformation model in language learning. किनभने कम्युनिकेटिभ एप्रोचेस आयो के. कम्युनिकेटिभ एप्रोचेसले के भन्यो भने कम्युनिकेसन चाहिन्छ, इन्टरेक्सन चाहिन्छ, कोलाबोरेसन चाहिन्छ, then what? Learning should be there भन्छ यिनीहरुले चाहिँ हैन. So because of this we have to understand like this. In the introduction part यहाँ चाहिँ यति कुरा लेखौं कि जस्तो लाग्यो मलाई. यति लेख्दा राम्रै होला. Receptive skills are those skills which are used to receive message meaning communicated by the spoken or written text. Receptive skills are related to knowing the meaning and message of the text. It is also said that they are related to language input. Listening and reading are receptive language skills. Traditionally, they were known as assimilative or passive skills. But when the concept of language is interactional and transactional developed, then they are known as active skills. They not only receive message and meaning, but also support to interact and communicate with speaking and writing. Listener and readers utilize a number of specific skills at the time of listening and reading, in terms of which they can be said as what? Active skills. यहाँ active skill किन भनेको भने reason पनि छ हैन. Just I want to delete this part. This is for the only discussion. Now see here. Chat box so making inference or prediction. When they listen and read, they make a kind of prediction. They immediately on the spot they make what? A kind of prediction. Then they are active skill. Extracting specific info. They read and they listen and they pick up. Extract means pick up specific information and develop general picture. Extracting detailed information, recognizing function and discourse patterns of the text. Deducing meaning. Deducing means generating, we can say generating meaning from the text and context. Answering questions related to the text. Solving problems related to the text. So when they listen and solve, read and solve, listen and answer, read and answer, when they listen and generate meaning from the text and context, read and generate meaning from text and context, read, listen and recognize function of the text. So what happens if they do these activities? Then what we have to understand, they are not only receiving, they are also what? Being active to think and speak and what? Express in written form. So they are such active skills. Productive skills on the other hand is about production of language. Speaking and writing are productive skills. When students speak and write, they have to produce or communicate their ideas and opinions outside, either in the form of spoken language or in the form of written language. कि त बोलेर बाहिर निकाल्छन् कि त लेखेर बाहिर visual form ma nikalchan हैन either in the form of spoken language this is what audible AUDIBL audible हुन्छ सुनिन्छ or in the form of written language this is what visible कि चाहिँ सुनिन्छ कि चाहिँ देखिन्छ visible so output will be what output चाहिँ के हुन्छ either audible either visible this should be हैन so they are what related to language output सँग सम्बन्धित छ speaking is related to conversing while writing is related to composing speaking चाहिँ कुराकानीतिर जान्छ conversation मा जान्छ while writing is composing भनेको सृजनातिर जान्छ both conversing and composing are related to language production दुईटै के हुन्छ नि production तिर जान्छ speaking and writing share some common features which also help us understand about productive skills ल हेरौँ त दुई तीन चार point speaker and writer want to say something speaker and writer want to say something वक्ताले पनि वक्ताले के गर्छ केही चीज भन्न खोज्ने बित्तिकै it comes outside when writer also wants to express something want to say something then he or she has to write in written scripts that is visible so speaker and writer want to say something के भन्न चाहन्छन् then that will be what either audible or then what happens there will be either audible हैन कि त सुनिन्छ or visible कि त देखिन्छ then they are what then there will be either audible or visible so when we say something when we express something then that is audible or visible so they are productive speaker and writer have communicative purpose they have to communicate speaker and writer select language from store that is language inputs received by the receptive skills listening and reading so listening and reading provide a kind of springboard एउटा के हुन्छ भने एउटा आधार हुन्छ springboard हुन्छ त्यहाँबाट reading speaking र writing or speaker and writer jump they jump from there so they have such common feature writing like speaking is inherently conversational in nature writing what के हो भने interaction हो के so when we write we ask many questions we think we ask many questions we think solutions then we what express so a kind of interaction will be within mind भित्र के हुन्छ interaction हुन्छ लेख्दाखेरि पनि for example कुन चाहिँ ठीक होला हैन के चाहिँ लेख्ने होला यसको आन्सर के होला यसो हुन सक्छ उसो हुन सक्छ हैन we ask many questions inside हैन then what we write so this is like speaking inherently आन्तरिक रूपमा के भने conversational छ यो हैन learning to write means in broad sense learning to solve puzzles where there can be active communication and interaction okay of course we only don't write the letters of course we write sentences we write a couple of paragraphs in a paragraph why to solve or to solve any kind of problem or to produce some kind of idea development को लागि गर्न सकिन्छ so there should be what interaction because of this speaking and writing are strong observable evidences of language learning strong observable evidences of language learning when students they speak when they write both will be either audible or visible then they are the observable evidences of language learning or academic progress of the students they are such so conversation and composition are active areas of language pedagogy and learning so they are what active skill भनेर हामी हेर्न सक्छौं अब हामी कुन चाहिँ इम्पोर्टेन्ट छ त रिसेप्टिभ अर प्रोडक्टिभ भन्दाखेरि अब थोरै लजिक दिन पर्यो as it is asked in question which skill to be focused in lower secondary level अथवा lower secondary मात्र भन्ने हो त okay lower secondary class lower lower secondary class no lower secondary English class it can be said that productive skills should be focused much on at lower secondary level. It is because of the following reasons. Our reasons are testing perspective, when we test language, from the examination perspective, when students do not speak and do not write, then we cannot judge their progress. So to upgrade, to uh, to update and upgrade their grade also from class 1 to 2, class 1 to 2, class 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, like this they have to upgrade their grades. Class चढ्नको लागि पनि के भन्छ, testing is necessary. To test, they have to speak and they have to write. Without writing and speaking, what happens? We cannot check their progress. So this testing system demands productive skills to be displayed from the side of learners. So testing system or testing system demands students to perform, to show either in the audible or in the visible form of language learning. So because of that, productive skill is more important than receptive skill भनेर यो एउटा यहाँबाट हेर्नुपर्छ एउटा पार्ट चाहिँ हैन। किनभने बच्चाले बोलेन भनेर लेखेन भने चाहिँ उले कति सिकेको छ भन्ने थाहा हुँदैन, then we cannot upgrade in upper grades, माथि पठाउन सकिदैन. So teaching and learning culture in Nepal is testing driven. हाम्रो के चाहिँ टेस्टिङ ड्रिभन छ. टेस्टिङ भनेको फेरि के त स्पिकिङ राइटिङमा छ. टिचिङ इन्स्पायर एन्ड टेस्टिङ ड्राइभ्स, एन्ड टिचिङ पढाउनु पर्छ भन्ने छ, तर टेस्टिङले के छ भने सबै कुरा टेस्टिङले नै ड्राइभ गरे हुन्छ क्या. त्यही भएर हाम्रो पढाइ नै के छ भने टेस्टिङ ओरिएन्टेड छ क्या, टेस्ट ओरिएन्टेड, एक्जाम ओरिएन्टेड छ. देन वी फोकस अन स्पिकिङ एन्ड राइटिङ, यो दुईटालाई जोड दिनुपर्छ भन्छ हैन. दिस मिन्स वाट इज टु बी टट इज टु बी टेस्टेड. जे पढाउने हो त्यो चाहिँ के हो, परीक्षण गरिन्छ क्या, त्यो चाहिँ मूल्याङ्कन गरिन्छ. एभ्रिथिङ डन इन ल्याङ्ग्वेज क्लासरुम इज फर टेस्टिङ, परीक्षाकै लागि गरिन्छ. टेस्टिङ डिमान्ड्स भिजुअल एन्ड observable evidences of learning. Therefore, students are required to be excellent in speaking and writing. If they have good command in speaking and writing, they're supposed to be active and excellent in learning. So, because of this logic, we can say that productive skills should be focused much. भनेर हामीले यो लजिक दिन सकिन्छ एउटा टेस्टिङ लजिक. Okay, testing logic is one to support productive skill than receptive skill. Receptive also, okay, this is also important, but when we see from testing perspective, testing logic, productive skills come front, अगाडि आउँछन् हैन. एन्ड टिचिङ लजिकले के भन्छ फेरि हेरौँ है त. टेस्टिङ लजिकले त्यो भने टिचिङ लजिकले के भन्छ. सो speaking and writing skills are related to language output. If students don't produce output but only receive input, we cannot say anything about their learning. के भन्न सकिदैन. In order to ensure their learning is scaling up, gearing up, हैन, बढ्दै गएको छ, फराकिलो हुँदै गएको छ, तिनीहरुको सिकाइ भन्नको लागि पनि स्पिकिङ एन्ड राइटिङ इज अ मस्ट, हुनै पर्छ. To be ensure that students learning is taking place भनेर इन्स्योर हुनको लागि चाहिँ के हुनु पर्यो भने उनीहरु स्केल अप हुँदै गएको छ, गियर अप हुँदै गएको छ हैन, बढ्दै गएको छ, दे आर डेभलपिङ अनि दे आर लर्निङ भनेर बुझ्नको लागि पनि स्पिकिङ र के चाहिन्छ, राइटिङ चाहियो. Without speaking, then without writing, we cannot confidently say that students are learning भनेर भन्न सकिदैन. सो टिचिङ को लजिक बाट पनि हामी के भन्न सक्छौं भने so this speaking and writing skills is productive skills should be focused भनेर टेस्टिङ लजिक पनि त्यही हो एन्ड टिचिङ लजिकले पनि त्यही भन्छ हैन. एन्ड मार्केट मेकानिजम लजिक के भन्छ त मार्केटले हेरौँ है त. मार्केट मेकानिजम लजिक, in order to be eligible candidate in today's competitive market or global market, global or today's competitive global market mechanism, good command in speaking and writing skills is a must. तपाईँको एडभर्टिजमेन्ट हेर्नुभयो भने पनि गुड कमान्ड इन स्पिकिङ एन्ड राइटिङ भनेर क्राइटेरिया बनाइदिया हुन्छ जब भ्याकेन्सीमा पनि हैन। सो मार्केट मेकानिजमले पनि के डिमान्ड गर्छ भने लिसनिङ र रिडिङ भन्दा पनि स्पिकिङ एन्ड राइटिङ शुड बी एक्सलेन्ट, शुड बी गुड। दोज क्यान्डिडेट्स हु हेभ गुड कमान्ड ओभर स्पिकिङ एन्ड राइटिङ आर प्रिफर्ड भनेर तपाईको क्राइटेरिया नै बनाइदिन्छ। सो मार्केट मेकानिजमले पनि के गर्छ भने स्पिकिङ एन्ड राइटिङ शुड बी फोकस्ड, should be prioritized bhन्छ, then why don't we focus? Teaching logic also, when they do not produce something outside is visible and audible, then how can we be sure that they are scaling up, their learning is gearing up, बढ्दै गएको छ, फ्राकिलो हुँदै गएको छ, तीव्र गतिले अगाडि बढिरहेछ भने कसरी हामीले इन्स्योर हुन सक्छौं त नि? सो फ्रम टिचिङ लजिक also productive skills are necessary. Testing, of course, in Nepal everything is testing driven. टेस्टिङ ले नै ड्राइभ गरेछ। हामी जे पढाउँछौं जे गराउँछौं यो परीक्षा आउँछ है भनेर पढाउँछौं। सो परीक्षामा के गर्नु पर्छ फेरि? they have to speak and they have to write. Without speaking and writing they cannot attend, they cannot do test. So testing logic, teaching logic, market driven logic, these three logics can be supporting points to support productive skills are more important in language learning. So should be focused much on productive skills than receptive skills भनेर जानु पर्छ होला हैन। अब यहाँ conclusion is here. Finally, it can be said that both receptive and productive skills are important to the language learners if they are expected to be competent and confident learners in English language. Of course, receptive skill creates a rich and robust foundation for language development, whereas productive skill works out on that foundation in order to scale up and gear up. बढ्दै जाने हैन, माथितिर बढ्दै जान्छ for fuller language development, complete language development, full language development, then what speaking and writing, elaborate, extend, stretch language learning. So त्यो दुईटैको रोल इम्पोर्टेन्ट छ। रिसेप्टिभ स्किल फाउन्डेसन, प्रोडक्टिभ स्किल फर्दर डेभलपमेन्ट हैन, फाउन्डेसन र फर्दर डेभलपमेन्ट छ। विदाउट फाउन्डेसन we cannot imagine further development. Only foundation won't be enough. So both are important, but if we are asked to select one, productive skill receives much emphasis or value than receptive one. Therefore, English language pedagogy at lower secondary level should focus much on productive skill. यसरी चाहिँ मैले एउटा sample answer बनाइदिएको छु हैन। So you just read it and get some ideas from here. So question is receptive skill and productive language skills, which one more important? Now I check your chat box. Of which level and when conduct for this result has been published. So please use more by the speaker. What is the level of? Okay, तपाईहरुको क्वेशन खासै रहन्छ। सो यसरी जानु पर्ला रिसेप्टिभ र प्रोडक्टिभ। अब then we go to the what यहाँ त अलि पछि आउँला यो। We go to now listening. Okay, now we finish productive and receptive. The relationship, what is productive, what is receptive, the relationship, and then receptive is related to language input, then and establishing foundation for the language development. Productive related to language production performance level, and productive skills, expand, elaborate, scale up, gear up, language development. These things we did. Now let's talk about the teaching listening. We talk to the teaching listening. Now here we have to do about what is it, what is it, and what is listening, what is listening, we have to discuss, then what are the objectives of teaching listening, teaching listening. Then we discuss what are the activities to teach listening, LISTENING, to teach listening, this very briefly we discuss this. अब नोटमा चाहिँ मैले अलि उ गरेर राखिदिन्छु, हैन। यहाँ चाहिँ कसरी पढाउँ भने मैले मेन कुरा मात्र भने, दिस इज मेनी टाइम्स रिपिटेड, हैन, आइराखेको छ। So just you can start simply introduction मा थोरै लेख्नु पर्यो, हैन। यहाँ एकजना साथीले चाहिँ यो बोर्ड युज गर्नु पर्यो भन्नुभएको छ। तपाई बोर्डमा पढ्ने भए फिजिकल आउनुस्, फिजिकल फेस टु फेस भएर इन्टरेक्सनमा पढ्नु पर्यो, अथवा मैले यहाँ तपाईलाई क्वेशन लेख्नुस् पनि भनेको छु। तपाईले क्वेशन यहाँ लेख्नु भयो भने म आन्सर पनि सकेसम्म दिन्छु, हैन। इन्टरेक्सन यहाँ पनि हुन्छ, तर तपाईको सबै फ्यासिलिटी खोज्दा फेस टु फेसमा आउनु पर्यो, है। Okay, yeah, just we write introduction part, like introduction with a couple of sentences we can write, for example, listening is first skill in natural order of skill learning, skill learning. We can say listening is, there are many ways of starting introduction part of listening, like speaking, reading, writing को, हैन। a couple of sentences धेरै लेख्नु पर्दैन, केही 4-5 वटा सेन्टेन्सहरु चाहिँ इन्ट्रोडक्सनमा लेखिदिनु पर्छ, हैन। त्यो हो भने राम्रो हुन्छ आन्सरमा। Listening is first skill in natural order of skill learning. Listening is listening is an activity, एउटा दुईटा डेफिनेसन पनि सम्झनु भयो भने then it will be easy, हैन। Listening is an activity of paying attention, हैन, paying attention and trying to understand what we hear, हैन, what we hear. This kind of definition सम्झिदिनु भयो भने, so it becomes effective in your introduction part. Listening is first skill in natural order of skill learning. Listening is an activity of paying attention and trying to understand what we hear, listening it is active skill because because when we listen and immediately we think about the response response. In this way it is receptive skills यसरी एउटा दुईटा सेन्टेन्सहरु लेख्दिनु होला अब यसरी लेखिसकेपछि then we go to the question क्वेशनमा जान सकिन्छ for example question सोध्न सक्छ जस्तै question like what are the objectives of teaching listening? What are the objectives of teaching listening to the lower secondary level students and design any three activities to achieve to achieve those objectives. यो क्वेशन भयो भने अब यो क्वेशन what are the objectives of teaching listening to the lower secondary level students? Design any three activities to achieve those objectives. यसरी सोध्न सक्छ हैन what are the activities what are the activities that can be used or applied or utilized or employed जे पनि भन्न सक्छ. What are the activities that can be employed adopted in while listening question mark describe at least 4 activities to teach listening to the lower secondary level जोड दिन सक्छ. ल हेर्नुस् ल describe at least 4 activities to teach listening skills to the lower secondary level students. अब यहाँ चाहिँ यस्तो क्वेशन आयो भने introduction part हामी लेखिन हाल्छौं हैन. This a couple of sentences is introduction part we write. Then त्यसपछि चाहिँ in the first question we mentioned some of the objectives of teaching listening यो लेख्छौं. Then we talk about the activities. We talk about the 3 activities मा जान्छौं, at least 3, and if you write 4 if you have time that's okay, त्यो पनि ठीक हुन्छ हैन. But minimum requirement is what 3 activities. Second question ma what are the activities that can be used in while listening stage. While listening को activity भन्नाले यहाँ के बुझिन्छ हामीले? Yes, yes. Yeah, के बुझ्न पर्यो भने now we have 6:33. 2 minutes wait गर्नुस् है, 35 म छोड्दिन्छु. So here what we have to do is while listening भन्ने बित्तिकै यहाँ हामी उसमा जान पर्छ. हो यहाँ ख्याल गर्नुस्. You think about this. What are the activities that can be used in while listening? This is the stage. यहाँ stage भनेको pre र post को नलेख्नुस्. Don't write pre and post. Just you talk about the while. While means listen and match, listen and do, listen and answer. Fill in the blanks. These different activities we have. We use at the while listening stage. त्यो मात्र कुरा गर्नुस्, pre र post को कुरा नगर्नुस्. And here describe at least 4 activities to teach listening. हो यहाँ चाहिँ at least 4 activities to teach listening भन्ने बित्तिकै this is general. Pre while post तिनटैको कुरा गर्न सक्यो यसमा चाहिँ. Pre 2 while 2 post 1 अथवा pre 2 while 1 post 1. In this way we can talk, but in the first while listening stage This is while listening means this is the while listening stage. And describe at least 4 activity to teach listening means what we can talk about pre, we can talk about while, we can talk about post, or all 4 activities from while listening पनि गर्न सकिन्छ. So it doesn't matter, but you have to understand that यहाँ चाहिँ talking about all we can talk activity from all 3 stages. So thank you so much. And now primary they will start. Thank you so much.